Well, you see it. You can look at the top right. It says off air.
Yeah, now it says live. Okay. So, hey guys, welcome to our first RethinkDB community meeting. As some of you know, we circled up concerning Horizon in our last one. And so this is going to be a more general overview of both the organization, but also the RethinkDB project in particular. So I'm going to start with just giving you an overview of our current status. As I'm sure all of you know, we successfully joined the Linux Foundation back a couple months ago. Since then, we've continued to maintain an active, healthy community, both on GitHub and Slack. ATN, Sam, and I have done a pretty decent job of curating through all the GitHub issues and making sure that stuff stays up to date. And then we've, as always, have a great community on Slack. Everybody's always in there helping each other out, answering questions, and most of us are generally in there on a day-to-day basis as well. We've also had slow but active development for both bug fixes as well as improvements. We haven't been shipping features as much as we thought we would have or would have liked to have, but that's for a variety of reasons that we'll get into. We did tag the 2.3.6 RC for the point release, and we've had several community members that have been testing that release. We think we're pretty much good to go on that, and we'll circle back to that here later in this discussion. And then we also wanted to have 2.4, thought we would have 2.4 out by now, but we've identified some critical blockers there that we'll get into as well. So what are our current holdups? Like I was saying, we intended to have the point release and 2.4 out by now. Turned out that, big surprise, everybody was a little busier than they thought they would be. We all had various things come up, and we just haven't been able to spend as much time on it as we would have liked to have. The biggest reason that we haven't been able to get the point release out is that we still hadn't gotten credentials for the download server, and we still need to work on generating keys for signing in the new binaries. ATN did a great job with all the testing and release infrastructure, so that stuff has enabled us to run all of our continuous integration against the 2.3.6 release and start generating binaries that we can prep for release. So the biggest holdup with 2.4 is that we have a regression on the behavior of r.now. It was changed in 2.4 in order to accommodate the new right hook features. So the idea is that you want r.now to represent the current timestamp within the context of a right hook, but in doing so, we broke the behavior, I think, in secondary index functions as well as change feeds. We were just talking about this a little bit before the call, and Daniel and ATN will have some additional thoughts on it. But the proposal that Sam has up is issue number 6267 on GitHub for anybody that's following along. Daniel, do you want to kind of pick up where we left off before the call started?
Yeah, sure. So the thing is that, like, the way we traditionally used to evaluate r.now in recall was that we basically, as soon as the server received a query that contained r.now, would replace it by a constant value, the value being the current timestamp at the time of query passing. And that avoided a couple of issues, and specifically that allowed us to kind of consider r.now as a deterministic term, so you could use it in a write function, an update function, and so on. But then for 2.4, we wanted to add this feature of write hooks, which basically allows you to store a function on a given table, and whenever a write happens on the table, like you insert a new document, you update the document, and so on, we basically evaluate this write hook function, which might then inject additional data into the documents. And like a canonical use case for that would be to maintain a change timestamp in the documents. And in order to allow for those things, we changed how r.now is implemented so that you would be able to store a write-hook function that contains r.now, where whenever you actually write a document and the write-hook function gets evaluated, r.now would be the timestamp of the function evaluation where the write actually happens. And the way we implemented r.now to accommodate that was that instead of replacing it at the time of passing, we changed it so that at some point during query processing, we save the timestamp in an environment, and then when r.now gets evaluated, it takes the timestamp out of the environment. And our hope was that that would pretty much maintain determinism. So it turns out that there's one case where it's not actually deterministic, which is if the query is processed in multiple batches, which I think Sam noticed. In that case, the environment gets regenerated for each batch. And so different parts of the query get evaluated with different timestamps. So that's obviously a bug. And the second thing is that apparently, so I don't actually remember where exactly we left off before the community shut down. But it looks like we also didn't get to the part where we would actually declare the new r.now implementation as deterministic within queries. So right now, if you compile RethinkDB 2.4 or the next branch, and you try to use r.now in like a write function, for example, you try to do an update that sets some field to r.now, then Recall will complain that you're using a non-deterministic function. And that's definitely unnecessary because like since it evaluates from the environment, it should be deterministic. So we could just mark it as deterministic. That comes with some other complications because it's actually still not safe to use it in a secondary index. So we will have to add some code there. And I think Etienne had an implementation. I'm not sure. I think there were some concerns about the particular way it was implemented. I didn't actually follow that much. Maybe Etienne can add a few words about the state of that.
Yes, so there's a few different designs. Sam had an idea of adding a new term for r.now inside write hooks. And I had an idea, I think, pull request 6191 for changing how determinism is calculated. And but there were design issues with my pull request, so we haven't decided on what to do there yet.
So if we went with something like Sam's proposal and had a new term, would we be disallowing r.now in write hooks, or would it evaluate based on the query context?
Yeah, it would be disallowing r.now in write hooks, but you'd have something like r.write.now or something.
Okay.
I mean, write in either way, RI or WR. And it would just be a separate term that you can use in write hooks instead of r.now.
Oh yeah, because write hooks are essentially index functions. So you can't, there's no query context.
Yep, they're stored functions, so the context is not the query context, it's the change context.
Right, right.
Yeah, so they're a little bit different in that respect. So indexes have no context or no environment at all. I mean, they have an environment, but we default initialize it. And that's absolutely critical, actually, to how secondary indexes are implemented in RethinkDB, because we need them to be absolutely deterministic. For write hooks, the environment would be, as Etienne said, the environment of the write, not the environment of when the function is created.
Okay, so I guess we'll keep working on formalizing that proposal. It'd be great if Daniel, you could throw your thoughts in.
Yeah, I haven't done a very good job at following along with the development there. So I think I will take a look at what's currently on the table there. I think, I mean, yeah, it sounds like we have some reasonable proposals. There might be a simpler way, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, it sounded like Lucy was generally in favor of the proposal that Sam came up with. There were a couple corner cases that he wanted to hash out, but I guess it's mainly going to come down to whether or not we overload our .now, right? I think we've decided on the behavior more or less.
Yeah. So the original plan for this was to not overload .now. Like we would only have a single .now, and the only thing we needed to do, it seemed, was to define the determinism property in a way that works and that can distinguish between secondary indexes and other uses. Maybe that doesn't work out. Like I have to check the state. Like our original intention was not to have a second term, and also to have only one implementation of .now. But there might have been some roadblock there. I'm not sure.
Okay.
If I can say, there's also another advantage of having a separate term for this is the ease of implementation. And I think going forward, that's something we have to factor a lot into what goes into RethinkDB because of our limited time.
Yeah, that's very valid. So I'm not yet convinced that it's easier to implement because I think if you can go without overloading it, we would only have the .now term, and it would essentially just be right now. And the rest would be using properties, but I might be missing details that make it more complicated than I think.
Wasn't there an argument that you could use both r.now and write time, or whatever the new term would be, in the context of change feeds? So write time would represent the actual time that the change feed value was emitted, and r.now would just be whatever your based on the query context.
Interesting. I feel like, so I'm not sure if I properly understand this part, because as mentioned, I haven't really followed along in the discussion.
So I think historically,
but that might be, so that sounds like it's something we might eventually want to make use of, right? Do I understand you correctly? Is that something we would be able to support right now?
Yeah, I think historically people have had a use case for being able to get the timestamp when change feed value is emitted, and so this would kind of kill two birds with one stone in both fixing it and also providing that functionality, since it would just be inherent to the way the term was written.
I see. So we would have a deterministic .now, and we would have a fill-in value when evaluated .now, basically.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see a use case for that. Yep. Were there any other major blockers for 2.4?
I don't think so. Initially, there was a bug. I think this was affecting 2.3.x2. We thought there might be a bug with using getAll in conjunction with change feeds. Let me find that issue. Yeah, so it's 6316. But I'm not sure if we were able to reproduce it or not. It didn't seem like it. But somebody was experiencing an order of magnitude worse performance using getAll on a change feed instead of a point change feed.
Yeah, I heard about that. That's a weird one. Yeah.
I think if someone can identify and fix the problem, we can put it into 2.4. Otherwise, it'll have to wait for another release. But for that, it would go into point release later. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like that's also not a regression, so it's not a blocker for 2.4.
Right.
For 2.4,
it was just the only other one that would be high priority, I would think, if it were actually a bug.
Oh, hi, Sam. Welcome to the call. And for 2.4, there are also a few open pull requests that could go in. I don't think there's anything hard to review, but maybe.
Cool. So what's the state on the build and packaging? I think Etienne, you have done some work in that direction.
Yeah, so I was able to build and package 236 RC pretty easily. I've got it all scripted using the Hydra build tool. And all that's missing is upload script and key for signing and integrating that to the build system. But pretty much everything we used to have now works. Yeah.
Cool. Let's see. So will the plan basically be so basically for 236 sounds like we just basically need to finish up the uploading and signing, and we could pretty much release it. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think so. The biggest holdup on our end was pretty much just having access to stuff, as we were talking about earlier. So now that we have control over the GitHub org, and Mike is working on consolidating the keys and passwords for us, we should be good.
Do we know, did 2.3.6 have any driver changes, or was it server changes only?
I believe there are no driver changes. Well, there are some, but they were already pushed before the company closed.
Ah, okay. Oh yeah, I think we might have pushed some driver changes in the last day.
I think there might be some docs issues that are still open, but
I see.
Yeah, I think that would be easy. The big thing there would be making sure that we know how to redeploy the static doc site.
Yeah, so the doc changes, I think, like docs doesn't sound to be a blocker for the point release, right?
No, yeah, I think we should
for the major release, yeah, we would definitely have to figure that out. Yeah, I think once we have access to the server, we can probably.
Another thing, after we have access to the server, the website itself is not open source. The docs are, but not the website. So it would be nice to clean up the code in the private repo, maybe just rebase it onto an empty commit. Everything. And start the website from scratch. And make it public. Push to the website.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just gonna say I'm sure that so Mike got back to me tonight actually in regards to consolidating all the passwords and whatnot, and I think I'm sure that he'll include the documentation on how to do releases to the static site and whatnot in that. Because I mean, as far as I know, he's the only one that really does it, right?
No, I think we've all done it in the past.
Oh.
I've not, but.
Wait, can I get some clarity on why the site itself isn't open source? Is it because we don't have access to it, or because we don't have the rights to it?
So
no, the site is a private repo on the GitHub organization.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
that's not a big issue, is it? I mean, we can just
I wouldn't open source it. I think the history and maybe even the current files in head have some private information.
I see.
Want to scrub first.
All right, got it. Okay, I got you. So we basically just want to push it into one single commit or something, like create a fresh copy of the current site. Okay, but we can use the assets and the code.
Yeah,
you don't actually need to do. Okay.
Yeah, and again,
okay.
like
That sounds good.
The big holdup on that was just us not having access to those. So Etienne and I can work on cleaning up the Git history or whatever we need to do to open source that, but it shouldn't be a problem now.
Cool.
Do you know if is the documentation for deployment and stuff in those repos? I haven't taken a look yet.
Yes, it is. The script for deploying the docs to RethinkDB.com is in the website repo.
Oh, okay, cool.
So
yeah, maybe one other.
Sorry, I don't have access anymore to the document, the Google Docs for this Hangout. So I don't know what's next.
Oh, sorry. I think I changed it to like read only, just so that.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can't view it at all.
Oh no, I refreshed and I can view it now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so just working through the points we wanted to talk about, as we were just kind of hinting at, we've been waiting for to get access to all the credentials and to have all that stuff transferred over to the new leadership team. We actually, just right before this meeting, had a lot of headway on that. As I was saying, Etienne and I now have access to all the closed source GitHub repos, so we'll work on open sourcing as much of that as we can. And then I think we thought that we would want to release binaries under the same certificate that the old binaries were released under, but I think Etienne and you and I have decided that we're just going to create a new cert for Open RethinkDB and just move forward with that. Daniel,
correct.
yeah. Daniel had access to the download server. So as soon as we're able to, as soon as we create those keys and sign the binaries, we should be able to upload them there, and that should be seamless for everybody. We might have to do something special with the update server, because if we change the key, I'm sure there's stuff that's checking that.
I don't think there are any checks on the update server. It's a simple HTTP Python app.
Right. So the update server doesn't have checks, but if the existing DPKG repositories will maybe cause issues, right? Like if people do an upgrade or like try to install the latest package.
They're going to have to install our new signing key.
Yeah. Etienne, do you know like how apt-get, for example, behaves there? Like, is there any way we can give it a message or something in space? It will probably just reject the package, right?
We might be able to give it a message in the logs, but I don't think anyone will see it.
Yeah.
We should copy the error it gives us and put it in a document somewhere so that it can be moved.
That's reasonable.
Are there any best practices around changing keys like that?
There might be. I'll do some research.
Okay.
But given that we don't have the old key, there's not much we can do.
Right.
It has to break.
Yeah. I think that's probably fine. Like even though the user experience is maybe not the greatest, like we probably can't do anything else, but like B, also it's kind of, it might actually give us some nice visibility because it actually marks a change in how RethinkDB is released, and so we can say, okay, this is the first like open release.
Plus, I think
community.
people are going to be so excited for like the bug fixes and stuff that they've been waiting on in the point release that the hassle of changing that is not going to outweigh the upgrade.
Yeah. So that sounds like, okay, so we will have to write something in the documentation though, right? Like I guess it could just be a blog post or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe a note on the download page.
Yeah, presumably once we, once Mike gets back to us with the credentials for everything, we'll be able to do all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, so for the website, we don't really need more credentials now that we have access to the web server. So the download server is the same server that's also hosting the website.
Oh, it's the same server? So
it's the same server. So I think we can just, like, we're basically in a state now where we could deploy the website once we have cleaned up the repository.
Great.
Something else that would be great for the release is to get access to the update server and change that.
Yep.
And then we'd have statistics on usage.
So we do, right? Because the update server service is also on the same server.
On a different one, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Oh, you might be right. Wait, there's an
Horizon server.
it's on the same server.
Oh, really? Okay.
Looks
Good.
like it, or it's an old version that's deployed here, but there's definitely a copy of it on Bane.
Okay, great. And is the Horizon website on that server too?
Yeah, as far as I know, everything is.
I'm actually not seeing the Horizon website here, so that might be on a different server.
Well, the IPs are different, so it must be on a different server.
That makes sense. Yeah, I don't have access to that, but maybe, like, hopefully Michael will have the login data.
Maybe
Okay.
it's not like set up through GitHub pages or something like that, is it?
No. The RethinkDB.com is on Linode, I believe.
But the Horizon Docs repo or
The
site.
IP is Cloudflare IP. So I don't know where it's.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, the Horizon. There was some fancy build system. I forgot how it worked. I think Horizon used a completely different build system for the website. That's based on Docker images.
Okay.
I'm not sure where it runs. Yeah.
So the last thing I wanted to talk about with the open sourcing the previously closed source code was, Daniel, do you have any thoughts on what we should do as far as merging the enterprise features into core?
Yeah, we should just merge all of them in, I think. So let me just. Yeah, so basically we can create a div and just, like, we should probably merge the open source next into RethinkDB Enterprise next. And that should just work, I think, because we haven't made that many changes. Maybe there will be one or two conflicts, but should be mostly fine. And then we can just take the div and take the enterprise divs into the main repository.
Okay.
Can we put those features in 2.4, Daniel? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was thinking we might just want to do that as 2.5.
Oh, I see.
Well, they're already implemented and tested and released to some customers, so I would trust them in 2.4.
Yeah, but I think it's good to have the clean separation between, like, the last release from RethinkDB as a company and then the, like, 2.4 or 2.5 would technically be the Open RethinkDB's first release.
Yeah. I actually kind of like that idea of, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
I mean, we could release them. I think so I think it's kind of nice to just have separate releases from kind of the perception that creates. Mm-hmm. And so so the enterprise features, like, they're not actually released to a lot of users, like to one user, I think. So that's not a big concern here.
What were all the features in the enterprise edition? I know there was some sort of, like, audit logging mechanism.
Yeah, so the enterprise, so the main feature is the audit logging, and that basically gives you a log of all the write queries that run. And then I forgot if you can log all queries optionally, but basically you get a log of all modifications. And in combination with that, which is probably useful for even more people, is that the logging is much more configurable. And so we have implemented a framework that can enable logging based on tags, so different and priority levels. So different log messages can be can in theory be tagged. We are not really making use of that yet in the code base, except for the audit log. But you can basically say log all audit log messages into this file and log everything else into the other file. Or you can say like only log errors into this file and like info messages and debug messages into another file or not at all.
The first one that came to mind for me was like having a special flag for user raised errors using the r.error term. That would be useful as well.
Yeah, I don't think that's not in there definitely, but like you mean like using r.error to raise an error to the log?
Yeah, I mean like having like generally speaking, errors raised by r.error would be treated the same as errors in the framework you're talking about, I think. But having a flag that's on top of that specifies specifically user-raised errors.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we can consider. Like right now, r.error only lives inside of recall, right? And only throws a recall error, which is not logged. But that might be useful. Or something like r.log or something, yeah, potentially. You'd have to discuss the semantics. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you get the r.log to evaluate, like,
right.
The queries.
The question is when it evaluates and so on, which server does it get logged on and so on.
Right.
But that aside, so the other thing, okay, so logging in general is more configurable. You can log to multiple files. You can also log to syslog, if I remember correctly. I think we implemented that. So you can log over the network to server. On Windows, you can log to the Windows event log. What else? So I think those are the logging features in the Enterprise Edition. There's also a feature for routing read queries to secondaries where you can specify which particular servers you want a query to be routed to. So by default, in the open source RethinkDB, right now you can say that query should be routed to the primary, which is the default. Or alternatively, you can say you can say outdated OK in the read mode flag, I think is what it's called, if I remember correctly. And then they will basically be routed randomly to any of the replicas that you have of the table. And so in the enterprise code base, you can specify particular servers or server tags that you want queries to be routed to. So for example, if you have distributed data centers, you can say that you want the query to be routed to the local data center. And it also has fallback implemented. So if none of the specified replicas is available, it will route to a random one of the ones that are available. And that's optional. You can turn it on and off.
Kind of related to that, does it happen to support read-only replicas?
No.
Oh, okay.
So sorry, what would a read-only replica be exactly?
Basically, no writes would ever get routed to the server that those replicas are hosted on, and it would just be a way you could basically spin up a server as replica only, and then do your database backups from there after it backfilled.
So, but it would still backfill, and would it stream changes from the primary?
Yes, it would work the same as any other replica. It's just that it wouldn't.
Okay, so you basically would just not assign any primaries to that server.
Yeah, I guess it's the same. Yeah.
My business could really use that feature, so I'm happy to alpha test it.
Yeah, so that's not currently an enterprise, but yeah. So is the intention to use it for backups?
Backups, but also if you're doing like heavy analysis and you don't want that to take place on your production nodes, you can like let your production nodes all backfill to a replica, and then kind of do like outdated reads to that replica.
Yep.
Without impacting performance.
Okay, so you could kind of implement that with the secondary replica routing in the Enterprise Edition.
Yeah.
And it would be kind of manual. Like you would just make sure that you don't assign primaries on the server, and you can use server tags for doing that semi-automatically when configuring the tables. And then you would just put a tag in the query that says route to this particular server, this particular group of servers. And that would give you that. I'm not sure, Chris, if that also solves your use case.
It sounds like it might. Yeah, I mean, we want more reads. We don't necessarily need, our business is like 99% read and 1% write. So we don't, anything that gets us closer to more read replicas would be great.
Daniel, is there a way to configure a proxy node so that it only talks to specific servers, or is it always going to discover everything?
It will always do its best to discover everything. If you want to be sneaky,
you'd have to do
you can set up a firewall. Yeah, but that might give you pretty bad behavior if you're not very careful.
Because I was thinking for you, Chris, if you had that read-only cluster that you'd set up manually, and then you could put a proxy node in front of that cluster, and then using this enterprise feature, always route to that proxy node without having to like specify. You'd be able to connect to one proxy node and not have to specify it in every query.
It's starting to sound a little more complicated. Yeah, I mean, I'd be open to having another chat on another Hangout about more specifics of that as like an interim solution.
Yeah, let's maybe do that separately offline.
Okay, I think I'm going to see if anybody else has any questions here, but before we wrap up, I was just going to take a look at what other people were saying. Zach Peterson, the guy who created that issue in regards to the get all being an order of magnitude slower for change feeds, says that he hasn't been able to reproduce it again since they re-architected their infrastructure, but he's going to work on it. And then Chris McClelland says, how can the greater community help? Are there concrete things that we can do? So I think we've kind of kept saying that we want to do these releases first, and then our next goal after that was to kind of work on contribution guides and cleaning up the code base and splitting some things out to make it more accessible to the community. So I would say right now we're closer than ever to having those binaries released for both 2.3.6 and 2.4. So I would say for now there's not a whole lot more that we can say about that, but I would look forward to that happening in the future, near future now. Let me see if anybody had anything on the YouTube channel. I think that's about it. Okay, so last thing I'm going to do is just kind of highlight, this is just an overview of what we've been talking about, but I just kind of want to highlight our goals going forward over the next couple weeks and months. We're going to try and get that 2.3.6 point release out as soon as possible. As we've discussed here, I think we have an obvious path forward to that now. And there's really no holdup at all. Etienne and I will work on the back end side of things, getting the new whatever infrastructure we need to do to start signing the binaries. We'll look into all the various package managers and how that's going to impact existing users. But yeah, I think we're confident in the release candidate and we're ready to ship that. Second thing, obviously, is getting the 2.4 release out the door. We would love to have you guys' input on that RFC issue number 6267 that we were talking about earlier. I think Daniel's going to throw his thoughts in there as well. And I'm sure Lucy will pipe back in once Daniel gets in there. That seems to be what usually happens.
So I logged in to talk. I think you're talking about the same one right now. The right hook, how should that interface be type thing that Mike Lucy was talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd say basically go with the thing Mike Lucy said, which is just to have it like don't have a special command, having a separate parameter that's just a plain document that's a REPL object.
Oh, it's the context thing. I see.
Yeah, less to explain to other people, and it's pretty simple.
Yeah, I had some thoughts, but I haven't actually read through the whole RFC, so I will do that and maybe add some comments.
Oh yeah, I forgot that we kind of talked about exposing like a whole context object. What were you saying, Lucy was saying?
Sam? Well, I was like, you should have a context object, and then you should have an ID, like an ID. You do .id parenthesis and .write timestamp parenthesis.
Uh-huh.
And instead, I just make it an object with 2 fields.
Mm.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think kind of talking about that tonight has given us some headway, some direction on that. But yeah, that seems to be the only blocker for now for 2.4. And then as we started to mention, we think we're going to do the enterprise features as our 2.5 release. So we'll keep you guys posted as far as all that stuff goes. It sounds like merging the changes in on top of Next is going to be pretty trivial. So I would expect that to happen shortly after the 2.4 release. And then our last goal is just to continue to support the community in whatever ways we can. We're all pretty active on both Slack and GitHub. If you guys have questions, you can continue to ask us there. And then everybody in the community, as always, does a great job of answering everybody's questions as well. We've got several people that are super active in there every day. So even if you're just getting started with RethinkDB or want to try it out now, getting started should be no problem. Everybody's here to answer your questions. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up?
No, I think this was a good start in the new wild of open source land.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Marshall, for emceeing this.
Yeah, of course. It's my pleasure.
I'm definitely reinvigorated myself.
Yep, I think we've all been really busy lately, but things have calmed down and we've been a little bit more focused, and I'm looking forward to getting back into it as well. All right, good night, guys.
Cool. Good night. Thanks everybody who's worked on this.
See ya.